It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, a scene of horror. A court hears how Hull funeral director Robert Bush left bodies to decompose, including one of a stillborn baby. Bush took the money of grieving victims and spent it on himself. Today, an apologies to families received an angry response.
It was never said to us as victims, it was said to the camera. It means nothing. I think it's more sorry for being caught out and losing his life and going to prison.
Coming up, we'll get more of the shocking details revealed in court today. And we'll speak to a woman whose parents' funerals were organised by Bush. Also coming up tonight, the first signs of hope in the fight to contain fires tearing across Europe. We'll speak to a Brit who escaped the danger zone in France. A Burnham bounce in the polls for the Prime Minister as he welcomes the Ukrainian President as his first foreign visitor. And tributes to TV presenter, comedian, musician and conservationist Bill Oddie, who has died at the age of 85. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. But first tonight, a court has heard how a former funeral director breached the trust of grieving families on an almost industrial scale. Robert Bush is being sentenced after pleading guilty to 67 offences, including 30 counts of preventing a lawful and decent burial. In March 2024, police discovered bodies and more than 100 sets of ashes at his business in Hull. Our North of England correspondent Katie Barnfield reports, and I should warn you that it does contain details that you may find distressing.
Are you sorry for what you've done to
Walking into court to face the families he deceived, an apology from Robert Bush.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, yes.
You're sorry?
As per the court, I've written to the court.
But for those whose lives he ruined by the way he treated the loved ones they were grieving, it will never be enough.
It was never said to us as victims, it was said to the camera. It means nothing. I think it's more sorry for being caught out and losing his life and going to prison.
Tristan Essex believed his grandmother Jessie Stockdale had been cremated by Robert Bush and was given ashes Bush said were hers, until police told him the cremation had never taken place and his grandmother's body had been found inside Legacy Funeral Directors. He said hearing the detail of Bush's crimes as his sentencing began was overwhelming.
Absolutely mortified. I actually had to come out of the court and potentially miss man being read out. I just couldn't stand it. Everything that we thought was potentially happening, what he'd done, within 3 people's statements have been confirmed. He took advantage of people when they was at the lowest they could ever be in their lives and get hit home too much. It was unbearable.
Robert Bush has admitted 67 charges spanning over a decade against more than 300 victims. They include fraud and preventing lawful burials after 30 bodies were found at his premises months after they had died. Several of his victims read out their own statements in court today, some struggling to hold back tears. Jane Rimington, whose mother Shirley was inside Legacy for nearly 6 months, said, "Horrific pictures came into my mind of what she would look like, and they wouldn't go away. They still don't. My happy memories are overridden with horror."
We heard for the first time today the details of how Robert Bush's crimes were discovered almost by chance. While Bush was on holiday in America, he'd asked another funeral director's Evergreen to help with moving a body. A casual worker he'd employed told them that Bush would not let them inside Legacy and then said, "You don't know the half of it. Bodies have been in there for years." After persuading the worker to let them in, they called the police and Bush was arrested as he came back through Heathrow Airport.
I'm arresting you at the current time on suspicion of preventing the lawful and decent burial of multiple dead bodies and fraud by false representation and fraud by abuse of position.
The court is expecting to hear from over 200 people affected by Robert Bush's crimes throughout the week before his sentence is handed down. The scale of his offending and the pain he caused laid bare. Katie Barnfield, Sky News at Hull Crown Court.
Well, Katie was in court today and joins me now live from Hull. And Katie, such is the scale of this, as you were saying there in your report, hundreds of families affected, that it could take days for all the victim statements to be read out in full in court.
Absolutely. They're expecting the sentencing to take all week because so many of the families want to share their story. And today really was all about those families, giving the Bush's victims the chance to share their stories of how much this has impacted them. Many of them were overcome with emotion. They were crying as they read out the statements to the court. In total, we heard today from the families of 25 of the people whose bodies were discovered at Legacy Funeral Directors. There were tears, as I mentioned, in court. People talked about having nightmares and seeing Bush's face. Other people said that they struggled to leave the house now because of the trauma of what he had done to their loved ones. And others spoke of the guilt they felt for leaving their loved ones with Bush. And although it was obviously a very difficult day for those families, they were all supporting each other. They were offering hugs and tissues to each other as they got up to read those statements. So very, very emotional scenes in court. We also heard this afternoon from the funeral directors I mentioned in my report, Evergreen Funeral Directors, who were effectively the whistleblowers who discovered Robert Bush's crimes and then called the police. They said, "We were shocked and disgusted by what we had been told and knew we had a moral and professional obligation to act without delay." They also told us they support more regulation in the funeral directing industry, which is something that many of Robert Bush's victims are campaigning for. Now, the sentencing, as I say, is expected to continue at least until the end of this week because there are just so many victims to hear from, and many more of those families will be standing up to face Robert Bush tomorrow.
Yeah, and all of them deserve their time. Thank you so much, Katie, who is in court for us today. Let's speak now to campaigner Karen Dry. Karen's parents' funerals were arranged by Robert Bush. Karen, a really difficult day for all families affected by the actions of Robert Bush. Like so many others, you have been left with uncertainty as to what happened to your loved ones, in this case, your parents. You were not part of the police investigation, but perhaps you can describe to me what the last few years have been like since his actions came to light.
It's a living nightmare, Sarah-Jane, really. It's been emotionally draining. I mean, today, listening to those statements being read out today was something else. You know, these were proud trawlermen that had worked all their lives that he did that to. These were proud Ezel Roaders that just lived for the families and fell on hard times in death, that literally went in there and hoped for something dignified and didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was a docker. He worked all his life. You know, he was a lovely man. And this is the essence. You see, you get, when people are reading the statements out, you actually get an essence of the person. And we need to remember that behind every one of these stories, there's a son or a daughter or a niece or a nephew that are absolutely broken by what he's done. And I mean broken. There's a lady there today, and I do not know how she got through her statement. Honestly, it was traumatising to listen to, never mind what she's actually going through. I mean, she's a shell of a person because of what he's done.
Yeah. And Karen, it is expected that victim impact statements will be read out throughout the course of this week because it's affected hundreds of families, and all deserve their time to stand up and say to Robert Bush and to the judge and to the wider public the impact it has had. I mean, I heard a gentleman called John Barnyard today, who was a close friend of one of the victims, John Carlisle, say, if you can't trust a funeral director, who can you trust? But the truth of the matter is that anyone can set themselves up as a funeral director tomorrow. And that is the basis on which you have been campaigning ever since you found out about Robert Bush and his business.
Well, we've put a petition together now, Sarah-Jane, because we feel like we need the government to act full-on action. We need literally cross-party agreement. They all need to get into a room together. They need to sit and go through what the legislation should look like and put it in urgently. Even just let's start with some kind of licensing that's run by a bereavement services at the local crems up and down the country. Something that can be put in that's a little bit more urgent than I'm kicking the can down the road. Because let me tell you, if this has happened on our little Ezel Road in Hull, this is going to happen again somewhere else. How are we going to feel as families that have gone through this for 2.5 years if in another 5 years' time we hear of a funeral director in Newcastle or London or Cornwall that's doing the same thing? We'll never forgive ourselves for not taking this opportunity to actually change the law, well, to make the law. Never mind change the law, make the law, get the legislation in. If you want to pop on my Facebook page, please do. The petition's there for you to sign and share. Please do it. We need at least 10,000 signatures for the government to even acknowledge it. We need 100,000 for it to actually be debated. We need the debate. We need the debate, and we need the debate soon.
Yeah, I mean, Karen, this is, of course, hugely important to the families affected, but the questions it's raised for, as you said, so many other people, because when you are in a position where you are vulnerable and grieving, you place your trust in the people that look after your loved ones after they have passed. And, you know, it's about dignity in death and who preserves that. And I noticed that part of your petition and part of your campaigning is to call for a commissioner for the dignity of the deceased. You know, we talk about this case involving Robert Bush, so high profile, but there have been incidences of hospitals and mortuaries where things have not been as they should. Why is this so important, a commissioner for the dignity of the deceased?
Because it needs to go right across the industry, Sarah-Jane. It needs to literally be from the moment of death, from the moment that the coroner signs the death certificate, literally all the way through to the moment of cremation or burial. We need to not leave any stone unturned. We need protection for the deceased when they're actually in a funeral parlour, all the way through to a protection of a deceased that's actually on that day being cremated or being buried. There's absolutely no, there's no way of stopping this unless we've got legislation. And to be fair, you know, I've heard from a funeral director in Wolverhampton again today who supported us all the way through, and she's literally telling us, keep going with the petition, keep going, because we've got to be regulated. We can't keep leaving it to chance. So we know that we've got the public support. We just need the government now to step on it. And you know what, Andy Burnham, let's, you know, come and meet us. Come to Hull. Come, you're in the north. Come across to meet us in Hull. We'll sit and have a cup of tea, and we'll go through what we want you to do to make sure this never happens again to another family. We've got some really good ideas. We've been talking about this for 2.5 years. We as a group have been talking about this for 2.5 years. Don't really know what the powers that be have been talking about for the last 2.5 years, but they have had 2.5 years to actually put something in place. Nothing's been put in place. I think they're going to try and send it through to a code of conduct, which won't be good enough. These code of conduct bodies have proved that they're not good enough. Maybe a different conversation for a different day, that, but today's about those victims and their families.
Yeah, it is, and for all their suffering and distress not to be in vain, without purpose, without action, Karen, which you've eloquently put forth tonight on their behalf and behalf of your family as well. Karen Dry, I really appreciate your time, and I hope we speak again in the future on this matter. Thank you. Right, let's turn our attention now to those wildfires in Europe. They continue to rage right across Western Europe. Firefighters in Spain and France battling to contain a number of blazes which continue to spread across the two countries. One major fire is just 7 miles from the French city of Bordeaux, and authorities are advising people there not to travel. It's an area that's popular with holiday makers, with as many as 120,000 people from the UK estimated to visit the area on average every July and August. Well, this evening, the Prince and Princess of Wales said that their thoughts were with everyone affected by the fires across Europe. Sky's Adia Chowdhury sent us this report on the situation in France.
If you're wondering why French authorities are cutting down trees when so many have already burnt, this is a fire break, a gap in the trees to cut off fuel supply. It slows down the fire, reduces the intensity,
It is an invisible line of defence.
The fire is heading straight here, but this is one of the smartest ways to try and contain it. It reaches 15 kilometres in that direction.
Hundreds of trees that have stood here for 30 years, sacrificed to save millions of others.
We cut the forest so that it protects this strip that is going to be created, protects the forest that is behind, and also protects the village that is next to the city of Marpuy. And so we have to do this. It's important work.
And during an important window, as a pause in windy weather slows the fire down ahead of prolonged hot weather. This should help the firefighters. Around 90 of them have been injured, prompting this show of support from the French president.
I know this has affected everybody, the families, and we will be there. It's difficult because we are faced with a never-seen-before fire. We have a situation today which is the most difficult we have ever measured since the Second World War.
And for a monster this big, you need a weapon in the sky as well. French airspace now home to water bombers, some from the European Union, including 3 specialist pilots from Sweden. Their boss describes the heat in the cockpit.
Both the scooping and when they go into the fire sites is really intense for their focus, and they are going up and down. There is a lot of turbulence, and of course then it's the heat. Sometimes it can reach even hotter when on the ground. So being in that kind of hot conditions for several hours is tough.
There we go, planes in the sky. They're dumping water to try and dampen this ground. This is Cap Ferret. The fire has swept through here. You can see just how much of it is blackened and charred. And still, there are parts of this place that are smouldering. That is how hot it is. The smoke has clearly moved away from the skies. That means the sun can come straight through and heat up this ground. And that's really dangerous ahead of tomorrow's heat wave.
With temperatures forecast to hit 32 degrees, even on this land that's destroyed, there's serious risk of reignition. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News, in the south of France.
Well, I'm joined now by British tourist Ben Sturnham, who was forced to flee the Cap Ferret Peninsula on Friday with his 8-year-old daughter. Ben, you are safely back in Bristol, but you were there on holiday for 4 or 5 days, and you saw this situation slowly get worse. Can you describe to me what it was like?
It was really strange. We'd had a wonderful first 4 or 5 days. We were staying with some friends who've lived in the region for the last 18 years. You know, Cap Ferret is famous for fishing, a chilled, relaxed way of life, vintage cars, and just watching life go by at a very relaxed pace of life. And Wednesday came, and there were reports of a fire to the north of the peninsula, which looked like a storm front, actually. It didn't look like a fire at all from where we were. But very quickly, from Wednesday to Thursday, the news reports coming in escalated. You weren't allowed to leave the peninsula if you left on the road, the only one road out, you couldn't come back in. So my taxi route out was blocked. And the only way out of the peninsula on Wednesday, Thursday was via boat. But of course, lots of the boats were booked. And so everybody was panicking, sort of making last minute arrangements, which was pretty tough to deal with because you're sort of reliant on sort of third party logistics to sort of get out of there.
Yeah, one road in, one road out, which makes the peninsula very vulnerable if that fire takes hold on that narrow strip of land. And like you said, you managed to get out by boat. We're just looking at pictures you took here on the pier. You actually got the call to evacuate in the middle of the night. Talk me through that process.
Well, on the Thursday beforehand, there was ash and smoke in the sky, which was really weird. So there was a level of anxiety with all of the holidaymakers and the locals there. So it was really quite quiet. On Friday at 2 o'clock in the morning, my friend Jez came and woke me up early, 2 o'clock, and said, Ben, there's now a full evacuation. We're packing up, we're leaving. The road is still open. I've got to take you to the pier early. And I was like, wow, okay, we were pre-packed. So I woke Allegra up. She was excited to get on the plane and go back home, but knew very little about what was ahead of us. It was a very short journey from my friend's house to the pier. And we'd spent time on the pier all week because there's a wonderful restaurant right next to it. But we were greeted by a scene of several hundred tourists with suitcases all queuing up, you know, real sense of anxiety, not panic, but anxiety in terms of, you know, what was happening next. The main ferry to carry people out didn't leave until 8:30, and I'd fortunately managed to book a private taxi boat at 6:30. But it was really strange. It was really eerie. Allegra was excited. She didn't have a clue that it was as serious as it was, but very strange, particularly when I reflect on it now, sort of 2 days after getting back home.
Yeah, I would imagine so. It's the innocence of childhood, isn't it? Everything's an adventure, and you sort of shield them as much as you can from whatever danger you might be in. But as you said, there wasn't panic, concern, urgency, perhaps. How many people were trying to make it across that water? Were many people hiring private boats? Were they relying on the ferry? Was it an organised process?
It was, and I must say the French authorities did a wonderful job. One of my friends is a restaurant owner in Cap Ferret, and he was talking to everybody to say, look, don't panic. We've got extra ferries coming in. We've got private boats coming in, so everybody's going to get off the pier in good order. And it was well executed. The boat that turned up to pick us up, it wasn't a speedboat or luxury by any stretch of the imagination. It was almost like a tugboat. You know, I got on it with Allegra. I was delighted to get on it. And as we set off, it was bizarre because you could see the sun coming up to the right, but to the left, there were plumes of smoke pouring out, and you could see the captain of the boat just looking there with his sort of first hand going, this is weird. It was only a 10-minute journey across to Archon. But during that journey, Allegra was laughing and joking, Daddy, can the boat go faster? And I was like, oh, I'm just concerned about, will the taxi pick us up at the other side? Because they had been trying to cancel me for the last 30 minutes because they were trying to evacuate as well. So I was kind of, we'd done the first part, but we hadn't quite made the second part of the journey.
Yeah, now that you're back home in Bristol and watching it unfold on the television, I take it you're relieved that you made the call when you did, because that's the thing about these wildfires. It's never quite as dramatic as you think. They are slow moving. First it's the smoke and the ash, but when it arrives, it can really take hold quickly. And for those people who don't know Cap Ferret, the peninsula, there's pine forests and very dry, hot conditions. It's a real sort of hot spot, literally, and that's tinderbox conditions. So I'd imagine now, being at home, watching it on the television, it must be even more surreal.
We're surreal, we're super thankful and grateful. And as you rightly say, and on the previous footage that you've shown, that the area is famous for the amazing pine trees. And one of the things that was happening is the pine trees were sort of catching fire. The cones, which are huge, were almost exploding like grenades and catapulting out sort of several hundred meters into the air and then landing and causing more fires, fanned by the wind. So it was kind of, we were very lucky that the wind wasn't blowing the fire down towards Cap Ferret, although I am aware that, you know, lots of homes have been lost, and my thoughts go out to everybody that's been sort of caught up in it. It's, we had a lucky escape.
Yeah, very much so. A devastating impact for the community there. And as you said, heavily reliant on tourism. It continues, we follow its progress. And as you said, our thoughts with everybody involved and caught up with it. Ben and Allegra, luckily you got out in time. Ben Sternham there, a British tourist who left the wildfires in Cap Ferret in the dead of night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight. There's been a bounce in the polls for the new Prime Minister. This is as Andy Burnham welcomes Volodymyr Zelensky as his first foreign visitor. We'll have all the details.
hear that whistle and that crunch. We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Andy Burnham has received his first foreign visitor since becoming Prime Minister, welcoming the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at a naval base in Portsmouth today. He pledged continued support for the war in Ukraine, for the effort against it, and promised to hand over the know-how behind a system capable of jamming Russian air defences. And as Mr Burnham took his first steps onto the global stage, news of a boost in the government's polling, with a YouGov poll for Sky News showing Labour drawing level with Reform. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates.
Here on Portsmouth Naval Base, Andy Burnham had his first international visitor. It was President Zelensky. He saw him on the HMS Queen Elizabeth, the aircraft carrier. The headline message is continuity, that despite Andy Burnham being President Zelensky's fifth Prime Minister, the pair stand shoulder to shoulder, and the UK will continue to support Ukraine. There's an ask from Ukraine, which is to help get President Trump divert more missiles, defensive air missiles, from the Middle East to Ukraine. Andy Burnham told me that he would take that issue away. But domestic matters dominate because we're 7 days into a new premiership. I asked Andy Burnham about the suggestions he could abolish stamp duty. Listen to just how definitive his reply was. Last time Rachel Reeves considered changing stamp duty, the housing market kind of froze. And it's something that you've been in favour of in the past, and there have been rumours about and stories about. Your team says scrapping stamp duty and council tax are not under active consideration, but also the tax is a matter for the budget. So that's just a tiny bit ambiguous and a set of few hairs running. So I just thought we could clear it up. Could you reassure people looking to buy right now that you won't change or scrap stamp duty in the next budget?
Yes, I can say that quite clearly. That won't be happening. And, you know, I don't know actually where some of the stories that have appeared over the last 24 hours have come from. It seems that somebody, you know, within, I don't know, 100 yards of me can say something, and then all of a sudden it's my policy, or someone can pass me something and then I support everything within the document. It's just not the case that we are bringing forward plans on that scale at this moment in time. So I'm quite happy to give you that clarification. Obviously, what we're trying to do, though, is to make taxation fairer. I removed VAT off electricity bills, or said we would do that, and that will come through later in the year. We are looking at how we take that little bit of pressure off people's shoulders, reduce the cost of living. These are priorities, and we obviously will keep working towards them.
Hard to see him coming back from that in the budget. Also today, breaking news, a new YouGov, Sky News, Times voting intention poll, which for the first time since April 2025 no longer has Labour behind Reform UK. Here are the numbers. You've got Labour and Reform UK jointly on 22, the Tories on 21, Greens on 13 and Liberal Democrats on 11. 15 months of Labour being behind, now reversed. I asked Andy Burnham about that. He said he knew not to trust the polls, but put any additional support down to the fact that he was talking Britain up.
This has come on the UK Tonight. Tributes to the TV presenter, comedian, musician and conservationist Bill Oddie, who has died at the age of 85.
jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
The Prime Minister is set to reveal plans to reform social care in England after saying that he is willing to spend political capital to solve a problem that has gone unresolved by successive governments. He also warned that the NHS will collapse without change. The ambition drew cautious support from the Conservatives today, who want a promise that taxes won't be increased, while the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, said he would do whatever he could to find a lasting consensus. Well, Mr Burnham spoke a little earlier. Here's what he had to say.
On this issue, no party is in a position where they've got the high ground. We've all failed on this issue over decades, and the pressure now on the National Health Service as a result of that failure is huge. So, you know, no one has got the moral high ground here. We've all got to work hard to try and find a solution. There are things that can be done in the shorter term, building towards a longer term solution. And that's what I hope the talks will get into. I would like to see if we could arrange talks, cross-party talks, to build that spirit of collaboration from the start.
Well, more details come later in the week from the Prime Minister. In the meantime, let's speak to Jane Townsend. She is the Chief Executive of the Home Care Association. Good to have your company this evening, Jane. The NHS will collapse without social care reform, says the Prime Minister, saying he's going to bring about substantial change. What is it that he could do that would actually work?
Well, first of all, he is right. All of us, directly or indirectly, are affected by the pressure on health services. Many hospitals are full of older people who could have been supported at home, but we leave them until they've deteriorated and then blue light them into hospital, which doesn't really make any sense. It's a very expensive way of doing things. So even without spending a lot of money, we could invest quite a relatively low amount in government terms in supporting people to live well at home. And many of us are experiencing challenges getting GP appointments, long waiting lists for treatment in hospital if we need that. So what we're really wanting is for all of us to have a choice of quality support when we need it. At the moment, there are large amounts of people, millions, who have got unmet need, and in order to have a choice, we've got to have decent quality. So we need the services assessed and able to give assurance to the public that they're good. And at the moment, unfortunately, over 4 out of 5 of community social care locations don't have an up-to-date rating from the Care Quality Commission. So one immediate thing the government could do is provide some additional surge funding for the Care Quality Commission so that they can catch up with their backlog that developed during the pandemic. Secondly, the government is already doing work to improve employment conditions for care workers, which ensures good quality because then they have the training and they are fairly rewarded for the professional role that they perform. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be insurance that the money that the government has allocated, 500 million to local authorities for the Fair Pay Agreement, will actually reach care workers, and we're not convinced at the moment that that would happen. We asked for that money to be ring-fenced and the government has said no. And we want there to be integration around the person drawing on services, not organisational integration. So much better joined up working on the ground between care providers and health colleagues. And that's very achievable and has been, is already being achieved in some areas, and we'd like to see that spread across the country.
Yeah, Jane, that phrase, joined up working, would you like to see that at government level as well? Because this has been a long-term problem and requires long-term solutions. Andy Burnham standing up today and saying, you know, this is an issue that needs real cross-party support. How vital is it that that happens? Because successive governments have failed to tackle this problem. They've all talked about it, but nobody's actually done anything about it of substance.
That's right. Yeah, it is vital. And many other countries, Japan, Germany, Scandinavia, they've had mature conversations. And one of the encouraging things is that Baroness Louise Casey and her commission, they're planning to start a big conversation with the public this summer, so that everyone can have a say and really learn and understand what the issues are. Because if we project forward 20 years, there are going to be double the number of people over 85. We're not coping now, so that will have very significant economic impact as well. There'll be fewer people generating the wealth that we all need. So we need to shift the demand curve to the left, try and keep as many of us, and it'll be people like me as well in 20 years' time, you know, keeping us all as well as possible for as long as possible. And it's not just about cross-party support, it's also working across government as well. It isn't just social care, it's employment, it's housing, it's education, it's making sure that people have got enough money to live on. And that's where the Prime Minister can really play a role in coordinating across government, not just in isolated departments.
Jane, is it about society having an honest conversation about what happens when we get older? We're uncomfortable as a society talking about, you know, death, but ageing as well is up there. We don't talk to perhaps our parents and our older relatives about what the plan is. I myself probably don't think about what's going to happen when I get older and how I'm going to... We just don't, do we? And is that what needs to happen as a society? We need to start talking about not just who's going to pay, but how we want our older years to look.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what happened in Japan. The government there sort of orchestrated a conversation with people, and it had got to quite a bad state there because, you know, the number of younger people available to support older people had declined, and it was just stressful for everybody. And I think already many of us and people that we know are sort of paying a price. There are, you know, stressful arguments about money when people are discharged from hospital back home. Family members are having to charge around the country supporting relatives whilst looking after their own families and trying to hold down a job. There's lots of people with unmet need as well. And as I said earlier, they just end up in hospital when they don't need to. So it affects all of us directly or indirectly. And I think it's trying to explain that to everybody and come up with a solution so that we pull risk, because not all of us need the NHS all the time, do we? But if you break your leg or are diagnosed with cancer, you don't want to have to worry of how to pay for it. And it's so difficult in England. You know, the means test is so mean. If your assets are above 23,250, which is pounds, which is, you know, pretty much a garden shed somewhere in the south, isn't it? You have to pay for everything, and then you can lose everything, but you've got no idea whether it's going to be you or not. So that whole idea of pooling risk would be very helpful. And you know,
it is about talking about a plan, and it's also you talk about, you know, paying there, and one of the big questions when it comes to social care is who will pay. In the current system, you know, you said can be mean. Is there a fair answer to the question of who will pay for social care, do you think? Because that is often what it comes down to for so many people.
That's true, but it's also about political choices about where the money that they do have goes. So at the last spending review, the government allocated an additional 29 billion to the NHS. And as far as anyone can tell, most of that is still being sucked up by acute hospitals for emergency and urgent care. That is more than all of the local authorities in England between them have for adult social care. So, you know, even if only a half or a quarter of that money had gone into local authorities, it would have made a massive difference. So I think it's about intelligent use of the resources that we have, rather than waiting until everything is an emergency and then spending vast sums in acute hospitals.
OK, well, let's wait to see if we get some of that later this week from Andy Burnham. That's Jane Townsend, their Chief Executive of the Home Care Association. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, wildlife presenter and comedian Bill Oddie has died at the age of 85. Bill Oddie became a household name in the 70s as a member of the comic trio The Goodies, alongside Tim Brooke-Taylor and Graham Garden. Their single, The Funky Gibbon, reached a high of #4 in the UK charts.
Gibbon, half a chance, do, the funky gibbon. We are here to show you how. The funky gibbon. The funky gibbon. Just like you, so come on, do the funky gibbon now. The funky gibbon. The funky gibbon.
Well, after the goodies, Oddie went on to host a range of wildlife programmes, including Springwatch and Birding with Bill Oddie. His agent and friend David Foster paying tribute to him today, describing him as the country's best-loved birder. Still to come on the UK Tonight, how Christopher Nolan's epic adaptation seems to be inspiring a surge in people wanting to learn ancient Greek. We'll talk about the Odyssey effect. And in sport, England defender John Stones verbally agrees to join a new club. We'll have the details for you.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. We take you to the heart of the story in the largest democracy in the world.
The data and forensics team is a multi-skilled unit dedicated to providing transparency in journalism. We followed a social media trail that led us to Bristol, where a confrontation between protesters erupted into a full-scale riot.
Here it really is pitched battle skirmishes, hurling missiles, throwing punches.
We gather, analyse and visualise data to tell data-driven stories. Sky News has been given exclusive data. Sky News has seen 72,000 posts used in this way. Elon Musk says it is, quote, a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America.
I think we would generally be called far right, sure.
It's called Return to the Land, and they invited me in. Its founder says he is building a fortress for the white race.
I kind of want to ask you, after seeing this, do you think what we're doing is immoral?
I'm Tom Cheshire, Sky's data and forensics correspondent.
I bet right now you often find yourself asking why. Why was a certain decision taken? Why did something happen? Why did they say or do that? I'm Neil Patterson, and it's my job as a journalist to find out why. Just explain why.
It's a difficult one.
Well, I mean, it's massive.
It's a very, very severe situation.
So if you want to make sense of this complicated world, Sky News' new podcast, This Is Why, is your daily fix. One story every day, and we can find out why together. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to. Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Rich and Frost.
Let's crack on. Let's get started.
David Garrido is here with a look at the sport. We're going to focus on the Commonwealth Games for a few minutes. Adam Ramsey-Peaty has been in action at the Commonwealth Games, and he's been disappointed with his performances so far. He's been getting quite emotional, hasn't he? And he's been in action again this evening.
He has, and with the same outcome as it was the other night. It's a bronze medal. Listen, we're so used to this man winning Olympic gold and sort of breaking world records that it does feel like a step down. But remember, he hasn't really competed much since Paris 2024. So this was in the 50 metres breaststroke final. Slow start, just struggled to make up the ground on Australia. Sam Williamson won the gold. South Africa's Michael Hooley won the silver. So it's his second bronze of the Games. He also got bronze in the 100 metres breaststroke. As you mentioned, couldn't really hide his disappointment then. He's a guy who really lives his heart on his sleeve. And he said, it's sometimes in this event, the harder you try, the slower you go. So maybe he was a bit keyed up after what happened the other evening. But he was a little bit more philosophical this time. He said, the last 2 years have been pretty tough, but I think I will learn a lot from this experience as a whole. I'm not too fussed about the medals. he says. So, you know, 2 bronze so far for Adam, as you say, Adam Ramsey-Peaty. I have to keep getting my head round saying that.
I know, but bronze medal's not to be sniffed at. How's Archie Goodburn got on, the Scotland swimming sensation?
Yes.
He's been such an inspiration at this Games because he's competing at the top level while living with a rare form of brain cancer.
That's right, yeah. So 2 years ago, doctors diagnosed and found 3 unoperable brain tumours, and he decided to go on the positive. He secured this life-changing treatment, and he's on this sort of new drug programme. And actually, since his diagnosis, has recorded personal best times, which is just astonishing. He finished joint 7th. He sort of faded over the last 25 metres, but absolutely brilliant story. Worth taking you through really quickly a list of the other things that have been going on. Brock Whiston's got gold in 100 metres breaststroke, SB8 for England. Sophie Hahn also in the women's T37-38, 100 metres. These codes obviously are for the para sports, but they are not their own separate games. They're all integrated in this same Commonwealth Games. Luke Whitehouse gold in the men's floor gymnastics. Scotland have got silver and bronze in the pommel horse and also a silver in the 100 metres butterfly. And awesome story from Wales, 2 identical twins winning bronze in different events. So Abigail Roper in the vault and Emily Roper in the uneven bars. There we go.
I mean, that's a good haul today.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that
not
on
bad,
day 4. I like
that's
that.
all right. I think that's all right. Plenty more going on, particularly in the world of football and transfers.
Right, let's talk Wimbledon. And from a British perspective, the real headline has come from breakthrough star Arthur Ferry, who was handed a wild card to the tournament but progressed to the semi-final. As you can see, very pleased to say that Arthur joins me now. Arthur, really good to see you. Huge congratulations. What a journey you've been on the past fortnight. Can you even begin to start to sum it up?
Yeah, it's been an incredible fortnight. 6 matches and lots of firsts for me. It's going to take a while to all sink in and process it all, but yeah, it's been incredible.
Because you look at the stats, I mean, you became only the 2nd wild card in men's singles history to make it to the semi-finals. You were ranked 114th in the world when you entered this tournament. Before it began, did you ever imagine that you could get through to the semi-finals?
Yeah, I've always had a lot of self-belief in my ability to play against the top players in the world, and yeah, it was just a matter of stringing wins together, and you know, in those slams, if you want to do well, you have to win a lot of matches. So yeah, that was the case. Past 2 weeks, I was able to back up wins with more good tennis and keep going. So.
Now, Christopher Nolan's film adaptation of the Odyssey has been a box office hit, but it also seems to have inspired thousands to learn Greek. An analysis of Google searches by the language learning platform Preply shows that searches for Learn Greek in the UK have risen by nearly 550% in just 4 weeks. Let's take a look at some of Christopher Nolan's film.
Ithaca's king is coming back.
Bringing vengeance. Bringing it all.
Even though Homer's Odyssey was composed in ancient Greek nearly 3,000 years ago, experts say that the film has inspired audiences to connect with the mythology and history depicted in Nolan's latest blockbuster. Well, let's bring in Dr. Lucy Jackson, Associate Professor of Classics and Ancient History at the University of Durham. Well, it seems that Christopher Nolan's latest epic film is proving a gateway for people into the classics.
That's exactly right. I've certainly been referring to it as something of a gateway drug to people I've been having, the many people I've been having conversations with. It's a big blockbuster in its own right, but it's a blockbuster summer, I think, for literature departments and classics and ancient history departments like my own as well. It's a really exciting thing when so many people are coming into contact with something that we perhaps slightly jealously have guarded, but something that we hold incredibly dear and something that we know a lot about. And to have that shared with so many people is really exciting, and it's been great to see such a brilliant response.
Yeah, well, Homer's poem is regarded as one of the oldest surviving and best works of literature. How has something from the 8th century endured through to the 21st? What is the appeal of the Odyssey?
There are so many elements within that that could provide 10-minute answers just alone. It's an incredibly rich poem. It's also, crucially, a very strange poem. And I think that's what has continued to appeal to people across centuries and is one of the reasons why it appeals now. There's lots that is very shiny and recognizably Hollywood about this film, but there's also still plenty of strangeness. And in a world where roadblocks are constantly being removed by AI and by technology, perhaps people are craving some of that strangeness, some of that material that makes us question ourselves and think again. And the Odyssey has that by the horse load.
Yeah, well, to borrow your term, the gateway drug into the classics and ancient Greece. If people are watching this film and it's piqued their interest, where should they go next? A lot of people searching on the internet how to learn Greek. I mean, ancient Greek, very different from modern Greek. But if they want to explore this further, where should they go? Because it's often said that the Odyssey, Homer's poem, is actually a bit inaccessible if you're not in on the classics already.
Well, there's a lot of resources online. People don't need me to tell them that. A Google search will provide all sorts of ways in that appeal to you. It really depends on what appeals. Maybe the music is the thing that appeals. One of the amazing things that Christopher Nolan did with his team was access contemporary research done in humanities departments that, by the way, are still very much under the attack in this country. That cutting edge research was being used and being plugged into this film. So there's resources on that. Or if people want to know about the myths, there are so many brilliant contemporary retellings of the Greek myths available. You can't move in a bookshop without seeing a Circe or a Medea. But from my personal perspective, what I would recommend people to do is go and seek out the plays, the Greek tragedies, because those are slightly more bite-sized treatments of epic myths, epic characters, wonderful female characters as well. I know people have been saying something about the female characters in Christopher Nolan's film. Greek tragedy will provide you with some crunchy figures to get your minds around. So that's where I would recommend people go, Greek tragedy.
How do you get over the elitist tag that the classics have? Because, you know, they're not taught that much in state schools. Ancient Greek certainly isn't taught in schools. You know, how do you get over this elitist tag and make this more accessible?
That is such an important question, and it's a question that I think about and I'm working on, and my colleagues, Professor Arlene Holmes-Henderson and Professor Edith Hall at University of Durham in particular, have spent decades working on creating accessibility, and colleagues up and down the country as well. They really are so keen to welcome people into this world because it's so full and so enriching. And one of the things I think people can do is just take that first step and say, yes, this is absolutely for me, and just see where their interests goes. One of the reasons why the study of the classical world appealed to me is because it has such a great range: history, literature, art, architecture, geography, now political science, all kinds of different disciplines. So you've got to find your element in it and really just pursue it and see where it goes. If you email people, you can always email people like me, professors at universities. You may well get a reply because ultimately we're just geeks and we want to talk to other people about the things that we love.
Oh, well, listen, there's got to be something in it for everyone for it to have stood the test of time for this long. Your passion and enthusiasm is infectious, Dr. Lucy Jackson. Thank you so much for coming onto the programme to share that with us. That's Dr. Lucy Jackson, Associate Professor in the Department of Classics and Ancient History at the University of Durham. Right, let's take a quick look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Heat building in the south again this week. It's going to peak on Wednesday. The cooler north can expect some rain at times. Most places looking dry with sunny spells into the evening, but northern and western Britain can expect a few light showers, while the north of Ireland and Northern Ireland will turn wet. The northwest of Ireland and Scotland will see persistent rain taking over tonight, locally heavy for the west, while Northern Ireland should largely dry up later. Elsewhere, northwestern England will see some patchy rain. Wales and Ireland looking quite murky and damp.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Up next is The World with Yalda.